Lexus, ever since they came out, they've had a lot of cars and a lot of them are really well known and very popular today. But there's one model that never really got any attention. And that model would be the Lexus SC, both the first generation and the second generation. And in this video, I want to go through these because I truly believe these will be future classics if people pay attention to them enough. This one has a total kind of hidden gem, it has ties to the Supra. This is the first generation, and the second generation got its best press for Mr. Richard Hammond, who really said this is a horrendous car. Let me tell you one thing, he just did not get the purpose of this car. That's fine. Nobody is perfect. We all make our mistakes. So in today's video, I want to walk you through both these generations, show you some of their interesting quirks and kind of interesting things about them, and why I think, especially this one, will be a future classic. Let's start with the first generation. This particular one is a 95 SC400. So the SC, when it first came out, there was two models. There's the SC300, which has a 2JZ non-turbocharged engine, and then there is the SC400, a more rare one, more powerful one, and it was actually the one to get to a point. We'll talk about it. So the SC400 has the same engine from the original LS400, the first generation 1UZ FE. Beautiful engine. It is an engine that is just shocking how well it held over time. The SC400 is actually a total hidden gem. You'll find a lot more SC300s than there are 400s, but the 400s are truly special. Let's walk around it as we share with you some things about these cars. This one is actually based on the similar chassis as the Supra, the Mark IV Supra, which was just one of the most notable names in the Toyota family. This one actually shares a lot with it. And that is something most folks don't realize. They drive similar on the base model level. They have similar technology, and it's just a beautiful car. The looks, it depends. Some folks will love the look. I mean, it just has a very unique look for this time period. I love the long hood and just these two lights right here. And it just looks the part. And if you notice the small details, and this is something a lot don't notice, this is actually the beginning of the L. You notice a very clear L. This one is inverted, but this one, it's an L. And that is something kind of a hidden thing with them. As we walk around it here, you notice there is this very interesting crease right here that runs the entire body all the way to the back. They do have a very interesting shape. They're very low to the ground, unlike the newer generation, which we'll talk about. They're very low to the ground, very interesting. But there's something about this one that many might not know about. Look at this door. This is as far as this door opens, and folks, this does not open a lot, and it's a massive door. I mean, this door is so heavy, it's unbelievable how heavy it is. And because of that, look at the hinges that they have. It's just a strange hinge configuration. This, compared to any other car, this is a massive hinge. And this is all the door opens. Folks, it's kind of interesting to get into it because you don't have a lot of space. And then when you do get into it, they said, let's talk about the interior before we finish our tour around it. This is a very interesting interior. I mean, you sit so far back, it feels so large. Like usually with cars, you have a football field of dash. This one, you have a giant space between you and the dash. And that's the feeling with these. The dash is kind of slanted back and it's pushed all the way forward. You have this standalone cockpit where it has everything on it. It's a very interesting car. So, few things with this car that you may not have known about. First thing is, they were leaps and bounds in luxury and features ahead of everybody else at the time. So this, of course, has a CD player, it has a cassette player, and they have this is one of the rare times we talk about cup holders, very German style cup holder here. Back in those days, these were not a thing. And then look at the gauges, just like the original LS400. They're Optitronic, I believe they were called. So basically they have this interesting light about them. They have this 3D effect. It's hard to show you on camera, but they were very interesting. Of course, power, tilt, and telescope steering, super comfortable interior. I mean, folks, this interior is extremely comfortable. I mean, sitting here, and the build quality is the biggest thing about these. They were not really meant, although this is technically the performance model, the SC400, they were meant to be grand tourers. Comfortable, quiet, insulated, luxurious, and that's what they were. The problem with this is the folks that bought them at the time, usually they were kind of well-off gentlemen or women that bought them. They didn't really use them for racing and whatnot, but there was a time period where these became they were very cheap to buy, they were reliable, it can be easily modified. A lot of folks modified them and they just basically trashed them. So finding an SC400 in good shape is difficult. This particular one is, I would consider, to be in very good shape. The interior is all there, everything is stock, it's not rusty, it's not completely modified and gone. But these have a lot of things. So going into one, you need to know that driving this every day, today in 2024, is a very bad idea. And that bad idea starts with what's under the hood. Let's take a look at that. The engine of the SC400, which was not exclusive to it, it is also shared with the LS400, the original one, is a masterpiece. There is no other way to say it. It's a masterpiece. Folks, in 1989, we were just starting with electronic fuel injection. Still cars with carburetors here and there. We were still figuring out the kind of fuel injection, and cars were moving, and the smog, the emission stuff were still affecting cars, and it was a very interesting time. This engine was groundbreaking for its time. And there are a few things that you need to know about this engine. First, it is mega complicated. They are reliable, don't get me wrong, but they're old now. Things have changed. They are mega complicated. I mean, the way the emission system works on this engine, they are at the next level of complication. So, a few things with this engine, and 3 highlights. If you come and look right here, this just looks normal, you know, just the cover. That's actually where the distributors are. So this engine has 2 distributors, one of them here, one of them right there. But it's not like any distributor you will ever see from any other car. Usually distributors are driven by the camshaft. You know, they'll gear-to-gear drive, and you can adjust the timing and all that. This is, as far as I know, I may be wrong here, so this is just my quick research here. This is one of the first engines that has a fixed distributor. And there is no distributor per se. So what you have is, you have a little housing that sits on front that has a cam sensor, and that cam sensor basically picks up the signal and knows when to fire the plugs. And you have a rotor and a cap, and a very interesting shaped cap that sits on the cam gear itself, and that's what sends spark to all the spark plugs. And the coolest thing is, they will cross. That distributor will sometimes fire cylinders on this bank and back and forth. That is a cool thing. So if you look at this area right here, this is actually the wire passage. That wires will pass from this distributor all the way to the other side, and from this distributor to this side. Not all the cylinders, but some of them. That was the interesting thing. Very high tech. And they do have 2 ignition coils, one here, one right here. That's what fires the distributors. And you notice they're like not placed in even where this one fire. No, it actually, they are crossed. And that's the cool thing. The other cool thing is, this is the beginning of the UZ series engine. This is original format. This one is mega complicated for the emission stuff and whatnot, but there is one more thing that was exclusive to the SC400, which is the hydro fan. See, this engine, unlike the LS400, which had the mechanical fan, this had a hydraulic fan. Look at this. Engine fan fluids. So there was a few models from Toyota around this era that had hydro fans, but this is one of the premier ones on the Lexus side. Look at this fan. It's a very simple theory. Hydraulic line, you have the pump right here, a dedicated pump. See, all the models that had hydro fans in Toyotas, they either shared it with a water pump or they shared it with a power steering pump. This had a dedicated pump just for the fan. And that pump sits actually exactly where the idler would be for the mechanical fan. So it sits in the right, very compact, doesn't really give you a lot of real estate. It's just compact right there. And you have your cooler in the front, reservoir here, you have a high pressure hose that feeds the fan itself, and then a return. Kept things very basic on that, but it works so well. It is one of the most efficient and most quiet fans you will ever put in a car. The Toyota Century, which is the top model of Toyota, for the V12, they do have a hydro fan. That's how special this hydro fan is. Now, I want to tell you one thing about SC300s equally and 400s. They are known for one problem that you really got to understand, that it is not a simple one to resolve: oil leaks. This particular car was in here for oil leaks. They love to leak from everywhere. Short to a point where you need to pull the engine out of the car, reseal the entire thing, put it back. Folks, these are old cars. That's the one thing you need to know. And this engine is such a high-tech engine that you need to be understanding what you're getting into. That's the one thing. Similarly with the 2JZ and the SC300, they'll have a lot of oil leaks. But the 2JZ version is a lot more manageable. They're very DIY friendly. This one too, to a point. But if you want a simple car, simple SC, get this 300. If you want the top of the line one, but you're willing to understand that they're expensive, things are going to get very expensive very quickly, this is the one. Because I want to show you one thing. This car has 115,000 miles. It's well cared for, it's taken care of for the most part, but again, it's old. I want to show you how it looks when I put a cup of water on top of this engine and rev it. Just look at this water. I want you to admire that. It is just unbelievable that this engine that has the original mounts runs this smooth. That is one of the biggest things with this engine. Folks, the SC400 is definitely going to be a future classic. And unfortunately, they're harder and harder to find in good condition. So be careful with these. That's all I'll tell you. Be ready to deal with oil leaks. They have a lot of oil leaks, transmission leaks, engine leaks. Remember, it's an old car, and these things are complicated. You get oil on the spark plug wires, you have to buy the entire set. You get oil on top of the exhaust, it's going to be smoking and smelling, and then the hydro fan. Do me one favor, never, ever delete the hydro fan. It's a crime, because when you see one run properly, they are just a marvel of technology. And that's one of the things I think they will make them desirable when they have the original hydro fan. Having said that, we didn't look at the back of this car. Let's take a quick look at it. It just has a very interesting look in the back. I just love it. So, long taillight, SC400 written in the middle, and it just has a very interesting profile. So it's a very wide and tall car, but the roof is very low. And that's the cool thing about these. They just have a very unique look. And having the V8 one, it's the proper one to have in my opinion, but just be careful with these. They are getting old, folks. And this engine, fixing all the leaks on it, basically equals remove the engine out of the car and we're starting all over. And the wire harnesses on these, they're fragile, extremely fragile with age. And that's another problem. Then the second generation SC, which is now an SC430 only. Something about this car. When it first came out, Richard Hammond from Top Gear at the time, I believe, reviewed one. And he said, his exact words, it's horrendous. It is not a good sports car. It's not fast. It's not comfortable. It's not nice. It's just horrendous. It's horrible. Why would they ever make this thing? Well, two things happened after that. First, people didn't listen to that because they actually sold in decent numbers and they're very available. That's the first thing. Much better than the first generation. The second thing is, I don't know what he was talking about, because this is one of the quietest, smoothest, nicest cars you can drive in. It's not a sports car. No, it's not. It's a comfortable cruiser. That's what it is. It's convertible. It's well made. If you appreciate old school luxury, you will love this car. And the best part is, unlike the older SC, which has a lot of kind of interesting quirks, the doors don't open well and they're getting a little too old, this one is aging a lot better than the first iteration. This is, first, it's not everybody's taste. I have to admit that. It is, some people will love it, some people will really not love its design. It's an interesting design, and the look in the front, it's interesting. The newer models do have a better look. This is the 2002. They have an interesting look. Let's put it this way. However, they follow a very simple recipe with this car. Keep it simple. And if you look at this section of this car, they actually used that in a lot of models that people really loved. Like the IS had a very similar section, this particular section right here. And then they started a small grille with this car. It is a car to be appreciated by those who love it, because it just looks very modern for its time. In 2002, we just came out of this into this, not directly, but into this. This looks a lot more modern, and it is. And that's the cool thing about it. Let's take a tour around it. The design is actually very simple. I mean, look at the side. There isn't much going on. These wheels, granted, they're not the best looking wheels for this particular model. The later models had a nicer looking wheels, but they just had a very interesting look. You come in the back, all of them will look very nice. I really admire the way they look in the back. Newer ones will have LED lights, slightly different, but still, this one is just, to me, this is the one. This is the one that will be very collectible. Few things, because this is a convertible, the third brake light is actually on the trunk. Speaking of the trunk, this actually has a proper trunk, even though it is a convertible. Let's take a look inside it, because this is where I think we have a few things. Pillarless doors, because it is a convertible. And then we look inside it. Look, I have to harp at Richard Hammond one more time. Love the guy. I am really saddened and happy at the same time that they just wrapped up their Grand Tour, and I guess they're not working together anymore. Watched every single episode of Top Gear and the Grand Tour. Love the guys, but I don't understand. From my understanding, he is a shorter person like me, and this is not a car for tall folks, because this is as far as the seat goes. It doesn't really go very far back. It's a very comfortable interior. I mean, this is such a nice place to be in. It's yeah. Tell me in 2002, I will turn the key on. Tell me in 2002, people did not buy cars because of this. This is door that opens ever so softly to hide the radio, because we did not want to interrupt the wood line. But wait, does this car have navigation? Well, of course it does, but it's hidden behind a wooden panel. Tell me in 2002, this was not the coolest thing people have ever seen in that time. That is the interesting part about this car. It is such a leap forward at the time. And just look at it. It is a beautiful interior. They started with these very interesting colors of leather. It's a very comfortable place to be. It's a quiet car. It's smooth. I don't know where the horrendous part comes from. Here's the other thing about this car. It is a convertible. So if we do this, it's a full power hydraulic convertible. Don't mind the old part squeaking there. This is a very sophisticated top at the time. It's actually pretty fast, even by today's standards. Not the fastest like the LC500. And then this turns into a convertible, and a very nice one. Doesn't judder, doesn't. It's actually a very nice convertible. I truly like the interior of this because it has something special about it. This is old school luxury, folks. All this wood trim that is continuous, not broken down. I just love it. But let's look at something, because I'll operate this and kind of stop it halfway for us to look at the mechanism here. Here's the few interesting things. This is an area that not many will see because it's covered by the top. Just look how nice this is. This is beautiful. Second thing is real glass, not some plasticky thing. No, this is real glass with a defroster. And the only car this style of build quality reminds me of in the modern times is the LC500. I mean, this is the car before the LC500. I think if they called the LC500 SC500, it would have went as well, because the build quality here is just unbelievable. Folks, this is one of the most reliable old car convertible tops you will see, period. Because in my entire career working at Lexus and Toyota, I've only worked with one that had an issue. Never really seen any issues with them. They don't have a lot of issues. The amp switch, yes, there's a switch that switches the amp from low mode to high mode when you open it. Other than that, not really much else. They're that reliable because look at them. They're built to last a very long time. Let me close the roof and we'll look at the trunk. So the interesting part about this is, look how big this trunk is. It's the entire panel that opens. And here are a couple things about it. So when the roof, and not many convertibles do this, when the roof is up, so it's closed, you can actually use this area as storage. But they tell you very clearly, do not put stuff here and then open the roof, because that's actually where the roof gets stored in. So when you are ready to store the roof, you're going to do this part, and then we're going to close the trunk. We're going to stow the roof, and then I'll show you the back how that looks like. So you still have the trunk with the roof in, but now it is here. So you don't have access to the bottom part, you have access to this. Not the biggest trunk in the world right now, but if you really need a larger trunk, you can close the roof, and for that one time you gotta carry a lot of stuff in your SC, well, just sacrifice a convertible for that one ride. That is the cool thing about these. The build quality here is, I mean, I want to say it, but some of you will disagree, and that's okay. I think this is better built than even that one. That's a testament. This is now deep into the 2010s. To me, this is a lot better built than the original SC. Lexus was a much smaller company then than they were with this. But the best part about the SC430 is the 430 part. Just look under the hood. That's where the party piece of this car is. This is the 3UZ FE, possibly the best iteration of the UZ series engine. So now, in addition to us having a much more modern engine, no more distributor, this has coil unplug on every single spark plug, you have VVTi. This is a VVTi engine. Makes more power, it's a lot smoother, it is a lot more refined. and it's a lot more reliable than the previous one. Some folks will jump out of the seat at this moment. In my opinion, working on these both exclusively, this is a lot more reliable, a lot more longer lasting than the old one. That one was the beginning, the stepping stone to get to this. This is a lot more reliable, folks. The best part about the SC430 is it's a car that you get to enjoy, and it's not going to break you financially. That's the best part. However, I do have to say a few things. Again, these are getting older, and they do have their quirks. This is a timing belt engine, just like that one. Timing belts are expensive. They're a bit involved. Valve cover gaskets, love to leak on these. Not the end of the world, very DIY friendly. Wire harness on these are notably better than the previous one, but they're still on the fragile side. You gotta handle them with care. Radiators love to go from age. This particular one doesn't have an original one, but they love to go. But the biggest thing with this car, I think, even the old one, suspension. Your choice of suspension will determine, did you buy an SC430 or did you buy a horrendous car? I see so many folks take these and switch everything to aftermarket stuff. When the original stuff, most of it was fine, let's just refresh everything. And then we have all kinds of problems after that. These are even more sensitive to aftermarket stuff and incorrect parts than the LS430, LS400, and the LS460 combined. You do anything with the suspension on these, take my advice. They're very expensive because you replace them once every 15, 20 years. That's how well made this car is. Replace them with original stuff and you will never hear a problem from the suspension. No noise, no rattles, no vibration, no nothing. Same thing with the brakes. You put any brakes on this, they'll always make noise, one way, shape, or form. Put originals, not a single problem. That is one thing I will tell you about these. Now let's talk about if you're considering this, you looked at this, you disagree with Richard Hammond, you want to buy one of these. I will tell you this, the early years, being the oldest, will have the most issues, but we're not talking about an unreliable car. We're talking about within the model itself. The early ones will have more issues than the later ones. The later ones, though, will cost a lot more because people know that. The latest years are the best ones to buy. In my opinion, they look better, they're newer, and all the little bugs that these had were worked out. So if you're considering one of these, don't buy a rusty one. That is the first thing, of course, that is with any car. But don't buy one that has aftermarket everything, aftermarket brakes and aftermarket suspension and aftermarket timing belt and all this 9 years. Buy a Survivor. I'd rather you buy one with an original timing belt at 150,000 miles than buy one with 50,000 miles with aftermarket everywhere. Be careful. That is the one thing on these cars. Just like the LS400, just like the LS430, you treat these cars with love and respect, and you give them their status and their place. When things need to be taken care of, take care of them with the original parts. Things are going to get expensive. I know. But that's how you do these cars justice, and they stay the way they are. But let me tell you one thing about the SC430. Until you drive one, and you own one, or you kind of spend some time with one, you will not truly appreciate them. And there will be a day where these are, I think, decently available today, because there's a lot of low mile examples. They're not astronomical. You can really pick and choose which exact one you want, unlike the old ones, which are becoming a lot harder to find, because these never picked on as a tuner car because of that single review. And that will play a big part in you being able to find a nice one today. That's why you can't find a nice one of these very easily, because these were never into the tuner world, because Richard Hammond did not approve. So maybe we should thank him for that, because he saved this car. Usually, the ideal owner for this car, and this is how it's always been, older couple, retired, they want to enjoy a car that is nice, refined, quiet, well-made, old-school luxury, and that's usually you'll find the owner of these cars that are trying to sell it. They moved on, they want something else. These are true hidden gems. If I had a choice between these two, as much as I love this generation, I would go with this one in a heartbeat, because this is not exactly the showstopper when it comes to performance. It's big, it's heavy, both of them are big and heavy and kind of not really performance cars. But this one is so much better made, in my opinion. Not that that one is not, but this is just simply better on every level. This is a car that I definitely think will be a future collectible and a classic because they are so behind the scenes. People don't appreciate these because of a single review. I think if you are looking for a convertible that is reliable, that is featureful, you can actually upgrade these to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay very easily. This is that fun weekend car. Put the roof down, enjoy it. It's not going to break the bank if you buy the right one. This is the one, folks. This is a truly hidden gem from Lexus that many skip over because, oh, it's a boring car. You can reconsider that because they really drive nice. They're smooth, they're quiet, they're comfortable, they're well made. They're just beautiful cars. Folks, this is the SC story. They are hidden gems, and people who own them will say they're not hidden gems, but they actually don't get the attention that they deserve. This is a very unique car on every level. The inside is unique, the outside look, the technology behind it. Yes, they are old. Yes, they have their issues and their quirks, but it is truly a special car in the Lexus lineup. This was an early Lexus when they were a small company. They were just starting and they kind of shook the world with the LS400. This kind of floated in the background. Nobody really gave it a lot of attention. But this one got a lot of negative attention. But I think it is a mistake because this will definitely be a future collectible because they are so nice. You will very rarely see, and this is something I'll tell you from my experience at the shop, you will see these neglected a lot more than these because there was a period where these were so inexpensive to buy that a lot of youngins bought it. Oh, I'm gonna make it into this hot rod and put a turbo on it and try to be the Supra that I can't afford. So you will see a lot more neglected one of these than these because the buyer for this, because of that single review, the buyer for this was always more mature. They appreciated it, they took care of it, and you will see a lot of fine examples of this, which means this is actually the rare one. Finding one of these in excellent condition, non-modified and everything, is going to be a lot harder than finding an SC430. But equally, this is a nicer car in my opinion. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.